Namaste, Dhanavat Pranam. By the grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhaktimadhava Puri Maharaj, we are reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 11. Vidhuyatad ameyatma Bhagavan Dharma Guvibhu Mishhato dasamasasya Tatraivantar dadhe hari. While thus being observed by the child, the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul of everyone and the Protector of the righteous, who stretches in all directions and who is unlimited by time and space, disappeared at once. Purport. Child Parīkṣit was not observing a living being who is limited by time and space. There is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the individual living being. The Lord is mentioned herein as the supreme living being, unlimited by time and space. Every living being is limited by time and space. Even though a living being is qualitatively one with the Lord, quantitatively there is a great difference between the Supreme Soul and the common individual soul. In Bhagavad Gita, both the living beings and the Supreme Being are said to be all-pervading. Yena sarvam idam tatam. Yet there is a difference between those two kinds of all-pervasiveness. A common living being or soul can be all-pervading with his own limited body, but the Supreme Living Being is all-pervading in all space and time. A common living being cannot extend its influence over another common living being by its all-pervasiveness, but the Supreme Supersoul, the Personality of Godhead, is unlimitedly able to exert his influence over all places and all times and over all living beings. And because he is all-pervasive, unlimited by time and space, he can appear even within the womb of the mother of child Parīkṣit. He is mentioned herein as the protector of the righteous. Anyone who is a surrendered soul unto the Supreme is righteous, and he is specifically protected by the Lord in all circumstances. The Lord is the indirect protector of the unrighteous also, for he rectifies their sins through his external potency. The Lord is mentioned herein as one who is dressed in the 10 directions. This means dressed with garments on 10 sides, up and down. He is present everywhere and can appear and disappear at his own will from everywhere and anywhere. His disappearance from the sight of child Parīkṣit does not mean that he appeared on the spot from any other place. He was present there, and even after his disappearance he was there, although invisible to the eyes of the child. This material covering of the effulgent firmament is also something like the womb of Mother Nature, and we are all put into the womb by the Lord, the Father of all living beings. He is present everywhere, even in this material womb of Mother Durga, and those who are deserving can see the Lord. Text 12. Tatha sarva gunho darke sunhu kula gahodaye Jajnai vamsa dara pandor bhuya pandor ivajasa. Thereupon, when all the good signs of the zodiac gradually evolved, the heir apparent of Pandu, who would be exactly like him in prowess, took birth. Purport. Astronomical calculations of stellar influences upon a living being are not suppositions, but are factual, as confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Every living being is controlled by the laws of nature at every minute, just as a citizen is controlled by the influence of the state. The state laws are grossly observed, but the laws of material nature, being subtle to our gross understanding, cannot be experienced grossly. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 3.9, every action of life produces another reaction, which is binding upon us, and only those who are acting on behalf of Yagya, Vishnu, are not bound by reactions. Our actions are judged by the higher authorities, the agents of the Lord, and thus we are awarded bodies according to our activities. The law of nature is so subtle that every part of our body is influenced by the respective stars, and a living being obtains his working body to fulfill his terms of imprisonment by the manipulation of such astronomical influence. A man's destiny is therefore ascertained by the birth-time constellation of stars, and a factual horoscope is made by a learned astrologer. It is a great science, and misuse of science does not make it useless. Maharaj Parīkṣit, or even the personality of Godhead, appear in certain constellations of good stars, and thus the influence is exerted upon the body thus born at an auspicious moment. The most auspicious constellation of stars takes place during the appearance of the Lord in this material world, and is specifically called Jayanti, a word not to be abused for any other purposes. Maharaj Parīkṣit was not the only great Kshatriya emperor, but also a great devotee of the Lord. Thus he cannot take his birth at any inauspicious moment. As a proper place and time is selected to receive a respectable personage, so also to receive such a personality as Maharaj Parīkṣit, who was especially cared for by the Supreme Lord, a suitable moment is chosen when all good stars assembled together to exert the influence upon the king. Thus he took his birth to be known as a great hero of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This suitable arrangement of astral influences is never a creation of man's will, but is the arrangement of the superior management of the agency of the Supreme Lord. Of course, the arrangement is made according to the good or bad deeds of the living being. Herein lies the importance of pious acts performed by the living being. Only by pious acts can one be allowed to get good wealth, good education, beautiful features. The samskaras of the school of Sanatana Dharma, man's eternal engagement, are highly suitable for creating an atmosphere for taking advantage of good stellar influences, and therefore Garbhadhana Samskar, or the first seedling purificatory process prescribed for the higher castes, is the beginning of all pious acts to receive a good, pious, and intelligent class of men in human society. There will be peace and prosperity in the world due to good and sane population only. There is hell and disturbance only because of the unwanted, insane populace addicted to sex indulgence. Text 13. Tasya prita manharaja viprardamya kripadibi chatakam karayam asa vachayitva cha mangalam. King Yudhisthira, who was very satisfied with the birth of Maharaj Parīkṣit, had the purificatory process of birth performed. Learned Brahmanas headed by Damya and Kripa recited auspicious hymns. Purport. There is a need for a good and intelligent class of Brahmanas, who are expert in performing the purificatory process prescribed in the system of Varnashram Dharma. Unless such purificatory processes are performed, there is no possibility of good population, and in the age of Kali the population all over the world is of Sudra quality or lower for want of this purificatory process. It is not possible, however, to revive the Vedic process of purification in this age, for want of proper facilities and good brahmanas, but there is the Pancharatrika system also recommended for this age. The Pancharatrika system acts on the Sudra class of men, supposedly the population of the Kali Yuga, and it is the prescribed purificatory process suitable to the age and time. Such a purificatory process is allowed only for the spiritual upliftment, and not for any other purpose. Spiritual upliftment is never conditioned by higher or lower parentage. After the Garbhadhana purificatory process, there are certain other samskaras like the Simantanonayan, Sadha Bhakshanam, etc., during the period of pregnancy, and when the child is born, the first purificatory process is Jata Karma. This was performed duly by Maharaj Yudhisthira with the help of good and learned brahmanas like Damya, a royal priest, and Kripacharya, who was not only a priest but also a great general. Both these learned and perfect priests, assisted by other good brahmanas, were employed by Maharaj Yudhisthira to perform the ceremony. Therefore, all the samskaras, purificatory processes, are not mere formalities or social functions only, but they are all for practical purposes and can be successfully performed by expert brahmanas like Damya and Kripa. Such brahmanas are not only rare, but also not available in this age, and therefore, for the purpose of spiritual upliftment in this fallen age, the Goswamis prefer the purificatory process under Pancharatrika formulas to the Vedic rites. Kripacharya is the son of great Rishi Sardban, and was born in the family of Gautama. The birth is said to be accidental. By chance, the great Rishi Sardban met Janapati, a famous society girl of heaven, and the Rishi Sardban discharged semen in two parts. By one part immediately a male child, and by the other part a female child, were born as twins. The male child was later known as Kripa, and the female child was known as Kripi. Maharaj Santanu, while engaged in chase in the jungle, picked up the children and brought them to the Brahminical status by the proper purificatory process. Kripacharya later became a great general like Dronacharya, and his sister was married to Dronacharya. Kripacharya later on took part in the battle of Kurukshetra and joined the party of Duryodhana. Kripacharya helped kill Abhimanyu, the father of Maharaj Parīkṣit, but he was still held in esteem by the family of the Pandavas due to his being a great Brahmin, as Dronacharya. When the Pandavas were sent to the forest after being defeated in the gambling game with Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra entrusted the Pandavas to Kripacharya for guidance. After the end of the battle, Kripacharya again became a member of the royal assembly, and he was called during the birth of Maharaj Parīkṣit for recitation of auspicious Vedic hymns to make the ceremony successful. Maharaj Yudhisthira, while quitting the palace for his great departure to the Himalayas, entrusted Kripacharya with Maharaj Parīkṣit as his disciple, and he left home satisfied because Kripacharya is taking charge of Maharaj Parīkṣit. The great administrators, kings, and emperors were always under the guidance of learned brahmanas like Kripacharya, and thus were able to act properly in the discharge of political responsibilities. Text 14. Haranyam gam mahim graman hastyasvan patirvaran pradatsvanam cha viprebhya prajatirte satirtavit. Upon the birth of a son, the king who knew how, where, and when charity should be given, gave gold, land, villages, elephants, horses, and good food grains to the brahmanas. Only the brahmanas and sannyasis are authorized to accept charity from the householders. In all different occasions of samskars, especially during the time of birth, marriage and death, wealth, is distributed to the brahmanas because the brahmanas give the highest quality of service in regard to the prime necessity of humankind. The charity was substantial in the shape of gold, land, villages, horses, elephants, and food grains, with other materials for cooking complete foodstuff. The brahmanas were not therefore poor in the actual sense of the term. On the contrary, because they possessed gold, land, villages, horses, elephants, and sufficient grains, they had nothing to earn for themselves. They would simply devote themselves to the well-being of the entire society. The word tirtavit is significant because the king knew well where and when charity has to be given. Charity is never unproductive or blind. In the Shastras, charity was offered to persons who deserved to accept charity by dint of spiritual enlightenment. The so-called Daridra Narayana, a misconception of the Supreme Lord by unauthorized persons, is never to be found in the Shastras as the object of charity. Nor can a wretched poor man receive much munificent charity in the way of horses, elephants, land, and villages. The conclusion is that intelligent men, or the brahmanas specifically engaged in the service of the Lord, were properly maintained without anxiety for the needs of the body, and the king and other householders gladly looked after all their comforts. It is enjoined in the Shastras that as long as a child is joined with the mother by the navel pipe, the child is considered to be of one body with the mother. But as soon as the pipe is cut and the child is separated from the mother, the purificatory process of jata karma is performed. The administrative demigods and past forefathers of the family come to see a newly born child, and such an occasion is specifically accepted as the proper time for distributing wealth to the right persons, productively for the spiritual advancement of society. Thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 15 on Friday, hopefully. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Nirmala Charja Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Rakshak Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnu Pad Jagat Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to our Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the worldwide devotees. Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Nrsimhapuri Dham Ki Jai. Ekachakra Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jew Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Gira Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gora Hari 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 Bol.